Welcome back, Wargamers. Today I'm going to be fighting the Battle of Bibracte, which was the first major battle in the Gallic Wars with Julius Caesar against the Helvetians. Now this battle is an interesting battle because it's a battle that Caesar nearly lost. Alright, in the battle, Caesar is going to, after destroying about a quarter of the Helvetian army, he's going to lose a cavalry battle. He's going to be kind of put on his heels, forced to array his forces on a hill as the Helvetians en masse charge at him. And I've seen this scenario played out a few times in war games, and so it's very interesting. But people usually only play the first part when the Helvetians are charging up against the hill in the background, and Caesar's attempting to repel this massive horde of Helvetians. I'm going to kind of play the aftermath of what happened afterwards. So after that initial rush, the Helvetians are going to be pushed back and are going to flee to a nearby hill, kind of that was parallel to the hills that the Romans were on. They're going to take some casualties, so here I'm going to have 7 units of these Celts, these Helvetians here, running back towards this back hill. All right, these guys will have taken a casualty as the battle begins, so they'll only need 2 more casualties before they're destroyed. And part of the army here has already captured this hill in the background. All right, so the Romans are going to have to pursue the fleeing enemy. They're going to try and destroy this kind of vanguard force up here, and then also attempt to dislodge these Celts on the hill. The big kind of the big, I guess, challenge for the Romans is in the actual Battle of Bibracte, right in the midst of the fighting. On the flanks of the Romans appears the Boii and the Tulingi, two tribes allied to the Helvetians, who storm the Roman flank and nearly roll up the Romans' line. Caesar is forced to kind of deploy his army into 2 separate lines to help stop the incoming Celts. So when I play the scenario, what I'm going to do is on either side of my map, I place 2 small forests as markers. And after the 3rd turn, I'm going to draw a card, and depending if the card is a red or black card, the Helvetians are going to deploy on one side of the map, and the Romans will have to deal with them. So for the Romans, I'm going to treat it much as Julius Caesar did. I'm going to rush at the Helvetians and try and take out as many of the enemy infantry as possible before those reinforcements arrive. If you notice, there is not going to be much cavalry involved in this battle. In fact, in the actual Battle of Bibracte, the cavalry battle kind of preceded the main engagement and were not a factor in the battle. So that's why I've only given each force 1 or 2 units of cavalry, 1 on each flank, and the Helvetians will have a little bit of advantage. They'll have some veteran cavalry that will have an easier time with the Romans. All right, and so that's where we'll see if the Romans are able to maximize their early advantage. They will have more infantry than the Helvetians at the start, but by the third round, the Helvetians will definitely have a numerical advantage over the Romans. Also, the Roman infantry is a bit higher quality. The Helvetians are going to have more levy troops, fewer elite units. All right, but they will have this hill in their possession, which can help them on defense. So there we go. That's the lines as they're arrayed at the beginning of the battle. The Romans will start first. I'm going to go ahead and draw, and we'll see what happens after the first round. I am using the rules that I've been using for all of my battle replays, which is To the Strongest by Simon Miller. So I will see you after the first round. I'm actually cutting here to something that happened in the middle of the first round. I activated my middle command. I activated these skirmishers here, and I fired upon those Helvetians with their back turned to my advancing Romans.
and I was able to activate these archers and able to fire some shots off at the Helvetians. Now, to hit an enemy unit and to the strongest, you need to draw an 8 or higher in order to land a hit. Now, since I'm using archers, I can also burn 2 ammunition to fire twice per activation. So I was able to activate them, and look at this. I drew a 9 and a 10, so both of those hits landed on the enemy. They already have 1 casualty. If they fail to save, and they'll have to draw a 7 or higher to save, then I just destroyed one of those 3 units in that Helvetian vanguard. So I'm going to go ahead and draw them now. Again, this could be a massive blow to the Helvetians, as the Romans already outnumber them, and it looks like they are going to be down a unit. So let's see, they failed to save on a 5, and they failed to save on a 6. So already the Romans are doing what they need to do. They've taken out 1 unit without even crossing swords in melee. So I will continue on now, and I'll meet you at the end of the first round. Alright, so round 1 is in the bag. Now, if we look over on the left flank, we will see that there actually was a Roman casualty sustained, as that Helvetian heavy cav was able to throw a javelin into the Romans, land a hit, so they're already only 1 disorder marker away from being destroyed, which could be huge for the Helvetians, as if they destroy that cavalry unit, the entire Roman right flank is open to them. If a cavalry unit gets behind your lines, it can really cause trouble with skirmishers and flanking attacks. So that's not too good for the Romans. But here we do see the Romans were able to take out that Helvetian infantry unit, so that Helvetian Celtic vanguard is already down 1 unit. On the back hill here, the Celtic infantry was able to turn around and fortify that position. So they'll have to decide whether they're going to stay on that hill or if they're going to get down on the plain and help those 2 stranded units. And you may notice that those units there in front of the hill still have their backs turned to the Romans. They weren't able to activate and turn their facing, so they might face some more withering skirmish fire from the Romans, or if the Romans are able to move up far enough, they could maybe land a flanking attack. So we'll see what's in store in round 2. The Romans are in a good position as of now. And here's just the armies arrayed against each other at the end of round 1. Alright, I'm going to interject here in the middle of round 2. The Romans are having some trouble activating here. On their right flank, I was able to get a unit to march a little bit farther up against the enemy line, but I was hoping to have this cavalry unit here maybe land a hit on the Helvetians, even the score, but unfortunately they drew an ace and my whole command just ground to a halt. Especially since I was hoping that this small unit over here would maybe be able to advance up and get on the flank of that cavalry unit, put some pressure on it, but did not happen. So I'm a little bit worried about what's going to happen next round, as that Helvetian cavalry will again have some free shots on my Romans. We'll see if they are able to survive through the end of this round. Alright, still on the Roman turn. If we move over here to the other flank, the Romans are having a little bit more luck here. They were able to land a hit on this Helvetian cavalry unit over here, and they were also able to move up that infantry unit right there to the right. They will be in a position to do some diagonal charges on that cavalry unit in the next round. So while the right flank doesn't look too good for the Romans, at least on the left they're making some progress and putting some pressure on that cavalry unit. Here you can see this one Roman infantry unit that was a little overzealous. You can see he kind of marched ahead of the entire Roman line, but he's getting himself in a position to charge that Helvetian unit whose back is still to the Romans, so he might be able to get a flank attack if they fail to activate on their turn. And they also received another casualty from that archer unit. Usually I don't have this good of luck with the archers, but they are really being sharpshooters for me today. So again, that Helvetian vanguard unit is in dire straits. Even before any melee has happened, almost 2 of their units have almost already been destroyed. So the Helvetians are going to be quite outnumbered as the Romans approach that hill. Again, they will be waiting for those reinforcements, which will be coming in at the end of the next round. So here are the forces after the second round. On the Celtic turn, not too much happened. Over there on the right flank of the Helvetians, they were able to answer back at those Roman cavalry who had inflicted a disordered marker on them during the Roman turn. They were in turn able to strike back at the Romans and cause them to be disordered. So both of those cavalry over there on the flanks are only 1 hit away from being destroyed if they aren't able to rally. Alright, so it's even over there on the right, but that cavalry unit does have a Roman infantry unit bearing down on it. Over here, the Helvetians were able to actually land a hit on the Romans. Luckily, the Romans were able to draw a save card, and so they are able to fight on for another round. And the rest of the Helvetian army basically is in a holding pattern. Those units down on the plain were able to change their facing and face the Romans, so they won't have to suffer any flanking attacks. And on the back hill, still the skirmishers had moved back and are now occupying the hill, but all the units are holding place, hoping to get some defensive bonuses as the Romans charge up at them. And it seems the Helvetians have chose to leave those 2 units down the plain to their own devices, and hopefully inflicts some major casualties on the Romans as they attack uphill. But in the next turn, those reinforcements are going to enter the battle, and if the Romans aren't careful, they're just going to blow right through on their flanks. So let's go ahead and we'll move on to the third round. Here's just a quick look at the 2 armies before I begin that next round. At the end of round 3, it wasn't a very exciting round, and it was definitely a mixed bag for the Romans, as they weren't able to inflict the casualties they wanted to on the Helvetians before the arrival of their reinforcements. One of the few things that happened was the Roman legionaries advanced forward and actually had a casualty inflicted upon them by the Helvetians, so that was not ideal. And way back there you can see that a skirmisher unit and a unit of legionaries yet again failed to activate. They have failed to activate 2 turns in a row, and because of their failed activation, the Romans weren't able to inflict any casualties on that cavalry unit over there on the far left flank. Alright, but the Romans were able to take out another one of those vanguard infantry units over here. If you notice, he was down at the base of that hill, but as those 2 Roman legionary units marched up, they were able to munch him. He didn't stand a chance. He wasn't able to hit back. And so now the Romans have a clear view of the hill and will begin their assault shortly. So that was good. But if we look over here, not so good. The Romans again could not deliver a death blow on those Helvetian cavalry over here on the right flank, even though both the Roman cavalry and that legionary unit attempted several times to activate and land a hit. They were unable to. And so the Roman line now is kind of pinned as the Helvetian reinforcements, 3 units of infantry, appear on their flank. So it's going to be really hard for the Romans to mount a defense without repositioning those units that are already engaging those Helvetian cavalry. So the Romans will have to decide whether they're going to try and pull back and disengage, or if they are going to try one last shot of destroying those cavalry and then hopefully change their facing before the Helvetians smash into their flank. So it'll be an interesting next round for the Romans for sure. So on the first command of the Roman turn, I moved this legionary unit diagonally, and I'm now going to attempt to land the killing blow on that Helvetian unit below the hill. Alright, in order to do so, I'll have to draw a 5 or higher to activate them because it is a double difficult activation. And if I am able to destroy this unit, I will have the Helvetians flank. So let's go ahead and see if I can draw at least a 5 and carry out an attack. And I draw the dreaded ace, which means I fail to activate, but I'm going to do a command move with my detached general. And I'm going to use my officer ability to replay the activation, and I draw a 3. So the best laid plans here, as my command is now over. After a dismal Roman turn, we'll go over here to the Helvetians, and the Helvetians start off their first command with a bang, as that flanked Helvetian cavalry unit was able to destroy the Roman cavalry without taking any casualties. And now they have the backside of the Roman line at their mercy, and so we will see what kind of mischief they can get up to in the coming round. That Roman infantry unit still is on its flank though, so we'll see. So on the Helvetian right flank, we have a kind of pivotal moment in the battle. If the Helvetians can take out this unit of Roman legionaries, the Roman line is really in trouble. So he's actually going to charge off the hill, so he's not going to get any defensive bonuses for this attack. It'll be a double difficult maneuver, so in order to activate, he'll have to draw a 4 or better, which he does. He draws a 6. Now in order to land a hit, he must draw a 6 or better. He does not. The Romans hit back. The Romans hit him on a 6. So now the Helvetians have to save on a 7+, and they do draw a 7. So that round of combat was a wash. We have no casualties. And now I will attempt to activate that unit again to attack that Roman unit. I'll need to draw a 9 or better because it's a double difficult maneuver. I failed to, and so the Helvetian command is now at an end. So the final command of the Helvetians really did some damage on the Romans. If you look here, that Roman cavalry unit was destroyed over here by the combined forces of the flanking reinforcements and that Helvetian cavalry across from it. And these guys were even able to march up and then activate again and attack the flank of this legionary unit. And he did land a hit. He did cause disorder. And if they're able to land one more hit, they will destroy that Roman legionary unit. So the left flank of the Romans is disintegrating rapidly. Hopefully they'll be able to move those legionary units over on the right flank to threaten the Helvetians on the hill, but it's going to be an upward battle for the Romans to pull out a victory at this point. So let's go ahead and look at the armies at the end of the round. So again, round 4 really breathes some life into the Helvetians. They are just tearing through the Roman left flank at a pretty impressive pace. That Helvetian cavalry unit just caused so much trouble for the Romans. They were never able to get into position, and that unit that I just pointed to is now going to try and sneak in between the lines. Luckily there is one Roman legionary unit that was able to kind of halt them and force a charge. So we'll see if they're able to hold the line as the Romans attempt to get organized. If you look up there though, that small Roman infantry unit is threatening the flank of that Helvetian infantry there at the top, so maybe they'll be able to at least reduce the amount of infantry they have to deal with over there on the flank. And if we look back here, the Romans are still in a position to flank that cavalry unit at the beginning of the next round. If they don't, then both flanks of the Romans will be collapsing. So we'll see what happens. Here is another aerial view at the end of round 4 of the two armies, and you can tell the Romans are in trouble. Alright, so here we are on the Roman turn of round 5. The Romans actually were able to finally kill off that cavalry unit, and they were also able to march one of their infantry units there to the flank of the Helvetians. They'll have to change facing in order to attack, but now the Romans at least have a shot to outflank the Helvetians before their left flank completely collapses. So now we're going to fast forward to the Helvetian turn, and of course they're going to activate this right flank first to see how much damage they can do. And this unit right here was able to destroy a Roman unit on the Roman turn, as the Roman attacked that Helvetian infantry unit twice and suffered 2 hits. So now this unit has free reign to attack this Roman legionary unit that is attempting to assault the hill over there. And if I pull back here, you'll be able to see the massive hole that exists between the Roman lines. If you look over here, all 3 of these units can now march straight through the lines and start hitting the Romans from behind. So again, I think that the Romans are done for at this point. Even though the Romans have caused more casualties on the Helvetians thus far, I don't really see the Romans getting out of this predicament. Here are all the Roman casualties again, only 3 units. And here the Romans, or the Helvetians, have suffered 5. But again, if you're to look at the positions of the 2 armies, the Romans are in a much dire straits. So if we look over here, the Romans were able to at least land a few casualties on those units up on the hill. But if you look, the Romans also took 1 casualty each, so they only need 1 more before they're destroyed. So I am going to go ahead and activate this Helvetian unit, and I needed a 4 to activate them. I drew an 8, so I am able to land an attack, and since I'm attacking from the flank, I get to draw 2 attack cards. And let's see, what do I draw? A 6 and a 7. I hit on a 6, so I landed 2 hits on the Romans. They would need to save twice, which they failed to do, and so that legionary unit is destroyed. So we will take them off. So again, the Romans are in a desperate plight, that is for sure. And that unit now is threatening the flank of another Roman legionary unit who already has a casualty. So I doubt they will survive another round. So in round 6, the Romans are going to need a miracle to survive. Both armies can only lose 2 more units before they have to concede defeat. But the Romans are just in such a terrible predicament, I don't see how they could possibly get through this round. We have 3 units of the Helvetians streaming through the Roman line. We have 1 unit there in the middle that is being flanked by the Helvetians while also facing off against an elite Celtic unit up on a hill. I do not see how they will survive a round, as they already have 1 casualty. The really only hope for the Romans is, first off, they get to go first in the next round. And if we zoom over here to the left, you will see that they are on the flanks of the Helvetians. So the Romans are going to have to, in 1 round, destroy that unit, and then perhaps be able to destroy that other Celtic unit up there on the far right flank that is being flanked by the Romans. That is their only path of victory. Meanwhile, there are numerous Roman units that only need 1 more casualty marker before they are destroyed. So again, the Romans are going to have to pull off something pretty impressive if they are going to make it out of round 6 and achieve victory. At the beginning of round 6, I was able to activate this Roman legionary unit. I was able to then activate it again to attack up the hill, and since it's on the flank, it will be given 2 attack cards. So I'll hit on a 6+, I land on a 10, and I miss on a 3. So now that unit must save on a 6, it draws a 5, and so we have a casualty disorder marker on that Helvetian unit. That's a good start for the Romans. They'll need to wipe out that unit by the end of this round. Now if we move to the other flank where the Romans had surrounded that Helvetian unit, if you look up there, they're able to activate, they landed a hit, and the Helvetians failed to save, and they already had 2 disorder markers on them, and so that unit is destroyed. So the Romans were able to take out 1 of those units that they needed to destroy in this round, but this other unit over here survived. They were able to survive the attacks of the Romans. They suffered 2 casualties, but still wasn't enough. So now it will be the Helvetian turn, and I don't think the Romans are going to survive it. So I will probably come back to you and talk about a Celtic victory. I can't believe it. The Romans somehow managed to survive that round. The reason they survived was that legionary unit right there in the middle, even though it was being flanked, and even though there was an elite unit charging down at it from the hill, it either evaded all the attacks or it saved. I believe it saved on 2 instances during that round. So the Helvetians couldn't take out this really vulnerable spot in the Roman line, and that allowed them to survive. And then up there, their fanatic unit drew a 10 on its activation and was not able to activate again to attack that Roman unit on the flanks. The only really good thing that happened for the Helvetians this round is that cavalry unit that has survived everything in this game, charged through the Roman line and took out a skirmisher unit. But since the skirmisher unit is only worth 1 victory medal, they weren't able to end the game. The Romans still have 1 more point to lose, so it wasn't quite enough. But I'm very impressed that unit has survived from the beginning and is still here at the last round. But here the Romans will be able to start the next round attacking first, and this unit is in a whole lot of trouble. It already has 2 casualties, so the Romans only need to score 1 more hit, 1 more disordered marker on that unit of Helvetian infantry, and they will win the game if they're able to take it out. So the Romans had quite the comeback here, and the Romans were able to come back from a really dismal few rounds, and I think they're going to end up getting the victory here. I'm going to go ahead and activate this unit, just start the round, see if we can end the game right now. So I'll activate these guys. It's a difficult maneuver, so I'll need to draw 3 or better. I draw a 7. Since I'm on the flank, I will be able to draw 2 attack cards. I draw a 9 and a 4. This unit needs to save on a 6. They draw a 2. So that is the game. The Romans come out of nowhere to seize victory. As they seize this hill, the Helvetians notice that their position on the ridge has been compromised and begin to rout in panic. And as panic sweeps across the line, the Helvetians disintegrate, even though over there on the right flank, they really do have the Romans in quite a dire situation. But they'll run off, and Caesar will be free to go on and conquer Gaul and all the other exploits that Caesar is known for, thanks to this Battle of Bibracte. It was a fun battle. I think the reinforcement mechanic kept things interesting, and it ended up being kind of a similar outcome to what actually happened in the Battle of Bibracte. If I were to assign an MVP award to a unit in this battle, it'd have to be that Roman legionary unit there that, after being attacked on all sides, somehow held out, proved to be kind of the backbone of the Roman army, and they're the ones that are really responsible for the Romans surviving and being able to flank the Helvetians and win. So again, great battle. Thanks for watching. I made it a little bit longer as I incorporated some of the moves going on in mid-round. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and as always, keep playing with those toy soldiers.